Ever wondered how is the One Piece anime different from the manga? Well, there's tons of differences. Let's start with the red-haired pirate Shanks. In the first chapter of the manga, Shanks losing his arm is almost as quick as Luffy's appetite for meat. It's swift, surprising, and straight to the point. Luffy, as a young boy, is taken by a sea king, a giant sea monster while at sea. Shanks, who had formed a bond with Luffy during his time in Luffy's village, immediately jumps into the water to rescue him. In the process of saving Luffy and scaring off the Sea King, Shanks loses his arm. The scene is rather quick, but immensely impactful, as it sets the tone for the series and profoundly affects Luffy, shaping his views on what it means to be a pirate and the lengths one should go for friends. Moving on to the Arlong Park arc, in Chapter 81, Nami's active defiance and self-assertion is portrayed with subtle, yet significant differences. In the manga, Nami's determination is sharp and piercing as she stabs her own arm to remove Arlong's tattoo, a truly visceral representation of her severing ties with her tormentor. The anime, on the other hand, opts for a less graphic portrayal, focusing more on the symbolism than the actual act. Nami stabbing at her tattoo without harming herself might seem like a case of censorship, but it also adds a layer of emotional depth, focusing on her struggle rather than the physical act. Next is the Loguetown arc, which runs from chapter 96 to chapter 100 in the manga. The anime adds a mysterious guest to the storyline, with the appearance of Dragon, Luffy's father. His presence in the anime subtly suggests his involvement in saving Luffy from Smoker. The manga, in its straightforward manner, keeps Dragon shrouded in mystery, not implying his presence in that scene at all. In the Thriller Bark arc, particularly chapter 485 of the manga, and the corresponding episodes in the anime, Zoro's sacrifice is indeed a defining moment that highlights his loyalty and endurance. This event happened after the Straw Hat Pirates' battle against Gecko Moria and his zombie army. In the storyline, after the crew defeats Moria, Bartholomew Kuma, another warlord of the sea, appears on Thriller Bark. He intends to capture Luffy on the orders of the world government. However, seeing the crew's exhausted state after their intense battle, he decides to test their loyalty and resolve. Kuma possesses the ability to push anything he touches, including pain and fatigue, into a physical bubble. He offers a deal. He will spare the rest of the crew if one of them agrees to take on all of Luffy's pain and fatigue, which he had accumulated during the fight. This pain is so immense that Kuma believes it will certainly kill whoever takes it on. Zoro, demonstrating his unwavering loyalty and incredible willpower, volunteers to take on the burden to save his captain and crewmates. Kuma then uses his powers to transfer Luffy's pain into a large bubble. Zoro steps in and absorbs it all, enduring an unimaginable amount of pain in silence. And of course, who could forget the notorious adaptations for TV broadcast standards? The anime sometimes has to navigate through the treacherous waters of censorship, turning Sanji's cigarette into a lollipop that was made exclusively for the 4Kids English adaptation. Next up is how Zeph loses his leg in chapter 57 in the manga. The scene is stark and unsettling, depicting Zeph's desperation in a survival situation. He makes the harrowing decision to amputate his own leg with a rock, and, driven to the brink of starvation, consumes it. The anime opts for a slightly less gruesome portrayal, showing Zeph losing his leg during a shipwreck while trying to save Sanji, getting it caught in an anchor's chain. Though both versions showcase his sacrifice, the manga's portrayal adds a darker layer to the chef's past. Moving on to Whitebeard's injuries around chapter 575 in the manga. When it comes to the Clash of Titans, Whitebeard and Akainu don't disappoint. However, the manga doesn't hold back, illustrating Akainu's brutal magma-based attacks, melting off part of Whitebeard's face. The anime, perhaps mindful of its audience, tones it down to a battle scar, removing just Whitebeard's mustache. Despite the censorship, the anime doesn't shy away from depicting the gravity of Whitebeard's injuries, ensuring the epic scale of the battle is maintained. Don't forget about Law's vulgar gestures. Trafalgar Law's attitude is as sharp as his sword skills, and the manga doesn't hesitate to show it. His straightforward way of expressing displeasure, flipping off characters like Eustace Kid and Don Quixote do Flamingo, speaks volumes of his rebellious nature. The anime, maintaining a certain decorum, decides to leave these brash gestures to the imagination, focusing instead on Law's cool and composed demeanor. Next one is Ace's original tattoo, which is visible from his first appearance in chapter 154. Symbols carry weight, and Ace's tattoo is no exception. Initially, the manga depicted Ace's back tattoo as a manji combined with Whitebeard's Jolly Roger, a symbol rich in cultural and religious significance in Asia. However, its resemblance to that symbol led to a change, with the anime opting for a cross instead. This alteration was mirrored in the manga and subsequent prints, a nod to the sensitivity of symbols and their varied interpretations across cultures. Luffy's facial scar under his eye is more than a mark, it's a testament to his resolve. The manga introduces this poignant moment early on, showing Luffy taking a knife to his own face to prove his determination to Shanks. The anime, perhaps hesitant to display such a jarring scene at the outset, waited until episode 878 to unveil this backstory. Though delayed, the inclusion of this scene in the anime underscores its significance in Luffy's journey. Moving on to Luffy vs. Kaido takes place in chapter 923. The confrontation between Luffy and Kaido is a clash of epic proportions, but the manga and the anime approach it differently. The manga portrays the encounter as swift and brutal, with Kaido's overwhelming strength knocking Luffy out in one hit. The anime extends the battle, allowing for a more prolonged exchange of blows, adding tension and drama to the confrontation, though the outcome remains unchanged. Next up is Bartolomeo's Luffy obsession during the Dressrosa arc, starting around chapter 706. Fanaticism takes a darker turn in the manga with Bartolomeo's devotion to Luffy. His aggressive defense of his idol includes slicing off someone's tongue for insulting Luffy, a stark contrast to the anime, where the punishment is severe but not permanently disfiguring. This difference highlights the manga's willingness to explore the more gruesome aspects of character behavior. Moving to Bellemere's tragic demise that occurred in chapter 77. The demise of Bellemere is a heart-wrenching moment in the Arlong Park arc. While both the manga and anime depict the brutality of her end at the hands of Arlong, the anime chooses a slightly less graphic approach, changing the location of the fatal shot from the head to the chest. Despite this change, the scene remains a poignant and painful moment, capturing the essence of loss and sacrifice. Continuing with how Bellamy deals with cheaters in chapter 222. Bellamy's ruthlessness is evident in both the manga and anime during his encounter with Roshio. The manga takes a darker route, depicting Bellamy setting Roshio ablaze after dousing him in alcohol, leading to a fiery explosion. The anime, while still showcasing Bellamy's viciousness, opts for a less graphic portrayal, with Bellamy shooting and knocking Roshio out of the window to meet his fate off-screen. Next is Vivi's suggestive clothing. The depiction of characters can vary subtly between mediums, as seen with Vivi's attire. In the manga, her top features rings that emphasize her figure, a design altered in the anime to a more modest wavy pattern. While the change is slight, it reflects the differing approaches to character portrayal and the sensitivity to audience perception. Vivi's attire is first featured from her first appearance in chapter 103, and changes in her clothing can be observed from her first appearance in the anime in episode 62. Continuing with Zoro's treatment of animals in chapter 3. Zoro's character is complex, and his interactions with animals are no exception. The manga doesn't shy away from Zoro's harsher side, depicting him slaying Helmeppo's pet wolf. The anime softens this aspect, replacing the lethal confrontation with a non-lethal one, where Zoro simply uses a chair to deal with the threat. This change underscores the nuanced portrayal of protagonists and their actions across different mediums. Next up, Sanji's smoking habits starting in chapter 43 in the manga. Sanji's signature cigarette is part of his persona, but the anime and manga depict the origins of this habit differently. The manga shows Sanji smoking during his early days at the Baratier restaurant, even as a child, an element the anime chooses to omit, likely to avoid promoting smoking to a younger audience. The difference highlights the careful consideration of content and its potential impact on viewers. Bentham's Okama Way, starting from chapter 129. Bentham, or Mr. Two Bon Clay, embodies the complexity of identity representation. The manga embraces his identification as an Okama, a term encompassing various queer identities in Japan. However, the anime initially tones down this aspect, altering his code and renaming his moves to avoid direct references to his identity. Despite these changes, the anime gradually begins to align more closely with the manga's portrayal, acknowledging Bentham's unique character and the diversity within the One Piece world. Moving on, how Buggy treats his subordinates. Leadership styles in the pirate world vary greatly, and Buggy's approach is no exception. While both the manga and anime show his short temper, especially regarding his nose, the manga depicts a more severe reaction to perceived insults, demonstrating the darker aspects of pirate hierarchy and authority. Lastly, in chapter 68 of the One Piece manga titled Soup, the differences between the manga and the anime are indeed notable regarding how the Baratier employees react to Sanji's decision to cook for Don Krieg's crew. In the manga, the scene is more intense and direct, when Sanji decides to feed the starving pirates of Don Krieg. Despite the risk and the lack of gratitude they show, the other chefs at the Baratier are understandably furious. Their reaction is shown quite dramatically, as they're depicted holding guns, emphasizing the seriousness and the danger of the situation, and the strong opposition to Sanji's decision within the crew. In contrast, the anime adaptation takes a slightly toned-down approach. Instead of guns, the Baratier employees are shown brandishing kitchen tools like knives and forks. This change likely serves to maintain a less violent tone in the scene, while still conveying the employees' strong disapproval and the tension in the moment. The anime uses the kitchen implements to create a threatening atmosphere, but it's more in line with the overall less serious and less violent tone that the anime sometimes adopts compared to the manga. And there you have it, fellow pirates, the 20 manga anime changes in One Piece. Seeing how the manga and anime tell the story in their own ways, it's obvious that whether you like the straightforwardness of the manga or the extra excitement of the anime, both have lots of exciting adventures and feelings. This shows that the Straw Hat Pirates' journey is as big as the Grand Line itself. Are you curious about how strong Straw Hat crew members can be? Well, that's the subject of this other video. Click on this video to see how strong will the Strong Hats be in the end. Go ahead, click it!